Hey everyone, it's Matt from Naws here. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be looking at drums. Early today I got a message from a friend of ours. We sent him an idea we had, just for some feedback. He really liked the track and commented that he really liked the drums and could we do a short video how to in terms of the drums that we've done. They're not particularly complex drums, but I thought there might be some things to share. As you know, if you've watched any of our other videos, you know we really appreciate all the help and support, the guidance that we've had over the years from other YouTubers, and it's kind of humbling to be asked by somebody to kind of explain how we did it. So these are the drums we're talking about. Let's have a quick listen. So that's just obviously the kick and the percussion, no bass, no melodies or whatever. So we're going to get into that in a second here. Going to break down how we did this, starting with the kick, then moving through the rest of the percussions. And as we get through it, we'll talk about how we use some extra processing to get them sounding the way they are. And then at the end of the video, we'll share with you the song in question, which is a work in progress, in case you're interested. So let's get into it. So first of all, the kick drum, this is it. So it is a short kick drum, so kind of typical of the genre really. We've actually called it colorized kick, in honor, if you like, of all the great music that we hear over there. It's a very short kick. So it's got a bit of a transient on it and a very short sub tail. This particular one, we're not actually doing any processing on it. That may change as we go through the project here, and we might add some drum bus or some layers to give it a bit more of a feel, a bit of timbre, a bit of dirt or whatever. We may also add, as we do oftentimes, add a EQ with a high shelf, so you get this kind of sound. They're kind of really lifting up that 1K region where there's a click, and sometimes that works with tracks where you want that element of the drum to push through. So working down the drums here, one of the first sounds we have here is a perc loop, as it's called. I think it's a hat loop. Let's just have a quick listen in case I'm wrong. Yeah, I am wrong. So the first one is this kind of rhythmic tapping sound. Let's have a listen again. Yeah, almost like a wood sound, I suppose, in a way. It's a little bit tonal, so it's important when you pick your drums that if they have got some tonal elements to them, that they work with the rest of the track. This one's in D minor, and this one seems to work. We didn't need to pitch it at all, but we did run some simple processing on it. So a high pass and low pass filter using EQ8 into a reverb with a low cut on the reverb and a low cut on the diffusion network. Notably, and there's a bit of a theme here as we go through the drums, we run quite a short decay time, 649 milliseconds, and 17% dry wet. So very subtle reverb added, not to overwhelm this part of the track. Bearing in mind that as I talk through here, you'll see that we tend to use a little bit of reverb on individual tracks rather than having a send on the reverbs. Just kind of works for us. So that's the first element. The next bit is the shakers here. So let's quickly play those. So they're those. They're from, as was the first loop that we've used, from Basic Waves. So I think one of the first pieces of advice, you may have heard it elsewhere of course, is to pick good samples, choose some good suppliers, the high quality productions of the samples, and you will save a load of time rather than go into samples that you can get, I don't know, somewhere else for free perhaps. And you end up spending loads of time trying to get them to sound exactly how you would like. A good tip is just choose good samples in the first instance. So these shakers, we have duplicated the two tracks here. You can probably see we've got one swung out to the left, one swung out to the right. And the real reason for that really is to push them out of the mix, so they're there in the background almost. They're complementing the groove. They're adding some stereo image as well, which makes the track sound nice. And then we're doing some processing on the group here. So we have a high pass filter in EQ8. Then we're going to Pro R, so Fab Filter Pro R. This one though is very much the default setting. So the default settings on the decay rate EQ and the post EQ, and the things that we've changed are similar to the other reverb I spoke about. We've brought down the space or the decay time to about 955 milliseconds thereabouts, and then brought the mix down to taste. And it's probably a good idea to kind of fiddle with those things, so there's no hard and fast rules here. Other than, I would say generally on your drums, you want to have, if you're going to add any reverb, you probably want it to be quite short and the mix to be relatively dry. So there's that. Next, this is the hat loop here. So this again is a bound to divide hat loop from basic waves. We tend to flip between using some loops and then constructing the loops ourselves. So if we construct the loops ourselves, we'll use drum rack and maybe a selection of hi-hats, maybe 4 or 5 hi-hats. And then obviously you want to have the offbeat hi-hat that is kind of de rigueur in house music, but then also maybe some things that are more rhythmical, more interesting. So with a drum rack you can position those hats in the stereo field. You can use different types of hats to make things sound a little bit less mundane. So that's what we've done there. There's no reverb on these. Felt like it didn't need them. The hat loop itself is already well produced, has a number of hats in there, and adding reverb to this would probably kind of mess it up, and so we left that away. We do have an auto filter on here, but that's just because in the track we do some automation on the low pass in certain elements for transitions or whatever. Next we have the hat. It sounds like this. So a basic waves hat loop. Again, it's not something we always do, but this one I like the sound of the hat, and the subtle variation in the hat and the loop seem to work for this track. We have cut and shut the sample a little bit, so for areas like this, for instance. But that's about it. And then on the processing side of things, we have a high pass filter. We have a bell boost around about 1.24 kilohertz, and that's for nothing else other than that kind of suited the sound that we wanted to achieve. And then we've also used a glue compressor, again really as a sound design tool. So we've have a kind of middle of the road attack and release, and then we brought the threshold down to such an extent that we can kind of crush some of the hat and change the timbre of it a little bit. And then of course, as you do that with any compressor, as you take away the peaks, obviously the average volume of the sample or the loop in this instance is going to go down, and so a little bit of makeup gain helps to compensate for that. Next we have a ride loop. It's a pretty straightforward one. Yeah, and so we added this in the last 8 bars or so of the first drop, just to add a little bit of energy, to kind of signal that, you know, the track is going to get more energetic as the time goes on. There's literally no processing on this one. Again, as I said, choose good samples and you don't always have to process them. And that's the case in point here. Next we have a sample from Production Music Live. It's from Deep Premium Volume 6. A few years back we bought the PML Everything pack, and that's been a really good go-to place for drums. Such an array of things. I think the PML have been in business quite a long time now, and Deep Premium version 6, I don't know whether that refers to maybe 6 years worth of drums. There's a whole host of stuff in there, and you'll find a lot of cool stuff in there. So this sounds like this. So hats again, as mentioned with the other hat loop that I spoke of just now, sometimes we'll use a drum rack instead of using 2 loops like this. And you can get a kind of similar effect by choosing maybe a number of hats and then having a kind of rhythm in the hats. Obviously you want to have the right kind of syncopation of the hats that you wish to be driving the groove of the track, and the other ones are kind of more supporting the groove, and maybe by using other processing in that drum rack, sort of panning or other EQs or compression or whatever, you can get quite a nice effect. But for this particular set of drums, relatively straightforward set of drums, we've done that. And next we have another loop. So at this point in the track development, we wanted to have something that was going to provide more interest, I think mainly in the kind of more sides, and so we found this organic loop. Sounds like this. So again, the only processing we put on this on the track level anyway is some EQ. So we pushed down the kind of high frequencies to try and push the sound backwards into the mix, so it's less present. And then we use the utility here to open up the width. It's one you got to be a little bit careful of, but I think we kind of got away with it on this particular track. And then lastly, we do have a compressor on this loop here, so that we can use the kick to sidechain it, so that it kind of grooves nicely. So they're the drums in a nutshell. And then, as promised, there's some other processing that we wanted to tell you about that we did on the drums. It's not on the entire drum set, so it's just on this group here, which includes that kind of woody sound, the shakers, one of the hat loops, and the clap. And essentially, if we drop down here, we have a send. And we're using this plugin called, let's bring it up here so you can see it nicely. So this is called Bus Force. It's by Arturia. I really like this plugin. It's quite visual. It's got a number of factors to it. So it's got an equalizer, a filter, a compressor, and some saturation. You have this kind of handy flow diagram here, which appears the minute you click on any one of these knobs on the top of the panel here. You can see the EQ reacts on all of the signals, and then there's a dry path, there's a compressor path and saturation path, and then there's an output. And essentially you're able to turn on or off the equalizer, filter, compressor or saturator. And in this instance we've only got the compressor and the saturator on. And then within each of these parameters you're able to adjust the EQ, adjust a filter if you wish to, and of course automate it if you want to too. But for this parallel compression, we're using the send to parallel compress, and so we're using some settings in the compressor here, which I'll talk about briefly, and some saturation in order to get some body to the drums and to make them sound a little bit fuller. And yeah, to help them kind of come through the mix a little bit, and also to give that kind of vibe that's in this particular genre of music. So you'll see from the settings here, we've got the dry path turned all the way down, so we're not having any of the dry path come through. As kind of highlighted by the name here, it is called the parallel compressor. So you could put this on the actual group itself and then use the dry path to kind of do the dry wet parallel compression piece. We're not doing that here because it's on a send. So we have the compression path turned the right the way up, and then we have some of the saturation path brought in to taste. And then overall then we're able to kind of mix it in. But if you just have a quick listen to what it sounds like on its own. So I'll solo that. And you'll note also down here we have a high pass, low pass filter built with it using EQ 8, of course. And then we have a compressor to sidechain it back to the kick so that we're making sure that we're sticking with the whole groove of the track and we're not overwhelming the kick when it hits with extra signal that might come in if you didn't do that. And then if we can listen maybe a little bit before and after. And then with. So yeah, it's just a little subtle effect. Hopefully you can hear that where you're at. If you're wearing headphones, you'll probably be able to. If you're on your phone, maybe not. But yeah, try out. It's something that's a kind of useful, simple trick to get your drums sounding a bit fuller, a little bit more interesting, and yeah, give it a whirl. So quick edit, cool plugin that we've been using for a long time now. It's actually free. It's called Fresh Air. We put this on the entire drum group. It's described as a vintage exciter. So I think it's essentially some kind of EQ and compressor, maybe upward compressor. But it's really simple. You've got two knobs here. You've got the mid air and the high air, and this is what it sounds like without it. And if I turn it on, this is what it sounds like with it. I really like the way that it adds that kind of high-end sparkle, I guess air as it's described, but it's not harsh at all. It sounds really nice. So I guess a quick tip is to don't use much of it. You can see here, we're down at 5% and 4%, and that kind of works around about there. So that's the drums in a nutshell. And as promised, this is the track that we're working on. So turn that off. Give it a listen here. And by the way, if you're new to the channel, really appreciate you having a watch here today. If you like what you see, let us know, give us a like. If you've got any suggestions for us, we're on a big learning journey here, as mentioned. It's quite humbling to be asked to share how we did our drums. We're still learning, we're still seeking advice around the place, enjoying the process the whole time, of course. So if you want to add any comments for us or references for others, then please drop them in the comments below. But this is the track, so I'll just play it from the second half of the first drop into the second drop. We'll keep working this track. It's likely to have a vocal on it, like most Naws tracks. So if you're a vocalist and you fancy working with us, then please let us know. We're always happy to work with artists, whether you're well known or not. Doesn't matter, as long as we can work a collab together. Always happy to do that. But here's the track. Actually forgot to turn on the parallel compression, so I'll turn it on for the second drop and see if you can hear the difference. Anyway, that's it. hopefully that was useful. Quick short video for you. Hopefully it's helpful. Again, if there's anything you think we could do better or other tips and tricks that you want to share with us, then please let us know in the comments. And if you like the video, give it a like. And if you like what you see, check out our other videos too, and give us a subscribe. Thank you very much.